I'm not the kind of guy who expects confetti for showing up to work. I write the docs nobody reads and fix the bugs nobody can reproduce. I don't complain. I don't post motivational quotes on Slack. I ship. So when the calendar invite said annual celebration, black tie optional, I figured maybe there'd be a buffet that wasn't beige and a DJ who knew where the volume knob was. That was it. The email said plus one's welcome. It said we celebrate our people. It said open bar. I ironed a shirt I usually reserve for funerals and weddings, wiped a coffee stain off my shoes in the elevator, and told myself to at least try to look like a person who belongs in a hotel ballroom. The registration table was a pop-up altar to corporate culture. Two interns in matching suits, a tripod sign with our new motto printed on foam core, and several trays of lanyards laid out like place settings. Most of the badges were glossy rectangles with the company logo in silver and the names printed under it. Mine wasn't. The woman didn't look up when she handed it to me, like her hand had learned the motion and did it automatically when it detected losers. Paper. Thin. A cheap plastic sleeve that had a bubble under the seam. Inside, in black block letters, limited access guest. I smiled because I thought it was a joke I didn't get yet. Is this wrong badge? She finally glanced up, the way you glance at a stranger when you think maybe he's lost, but you don't want to be the one to say it. No, that's right, she said. Then quieter, like she'd been given a script. It just means certain areas are restricted. You're still welcome to enjoy the event. Certain areas. I turned the badge over, expecting some color code, a key, something to tell me what I'd just been downgraded from. It was just white and flimsy and already curling at the corner from the warmth of my hand. The intern pointed toward the coat check and smiled with her whole face, eager to move me along in the line of people who actually had names printed in silver. The ballroom smelled like citrus cleaner and chafing fuel. Round tables, white linens, low vases with floating candles. The real badges flashed on chests like medals as people moved around. Gold lanyards for leadership, navy for full access, red for vendor. A white paper square hung at the end of my rental-looking lanyard like a hall pass from middle school. Behind the bar, I saw a small sign, 2 drink tickets for limited access. At the bottom, a route arrow, buffet A and C. B was for full-service dining. I stood off to the side, trying to spot familiar faces. I found them quickly because I'd hired half of them. Ben from QA waved, then pretended he was stretching when he noticed my badge. June from Product half-hugged me with one arm, her other hand already pulling her phone out to answer someone more important than me. "Oh, hey," she said, eyes not leaving the screen. "You made it." "Apparently," I said. "Find your table." She was already stepping away. "Which table is—" "Ask at the registry," she smiled. "The kind you give to a delivery driver when you have to sign for a package and you want it over with." I tried the seating chart. My name wasn't on it. There was a rectangle with reserved leadership. There was another that said Team Apex. That's what they renamed our platform after the reorg, so it could be something you could put on a t-shirt. I didn't see my name next to Apex either. I followed the limited access arrow to Buffet A, like I was being guided to a secondary exit. Steam rose from pans of chicken piccata and a vegetable medley that squeaked against the tongs. I took a plate because my hands needed to be doing anything other than clenching. "Nice badge," someone said behind me. I turned. Connor, new VP. He'd been here 6 months and already had a corner office, and a story he loved to tell about turning around a failing team at his last company by introducing accountability. He wore a gold lanyard. "Didn't know we had tiers this year," he said, tone careful. "Me neither," I said. He squinted at my face, the way people do when they're trying to place you. I spared him the work. "Marcus, I lead the ingest pipeline. We met in March." "Oh, yeah," he said, too fast, like the name had been dropped into his ear through an earpiece. "Yeah, how's the backlog looking?" He didn't wait for my answer. He clapped my shoulder, a gentle tap like he was testing the ripeness of fruit, and walked away toward the line of full glasses on the signature cocktails table. 2 bartenders were pouring something blue for a cluster of gold and navy badges, laughing at a joke I couldn't hear. The paper badge was a heat source against my sternum. I moved through the room like it belonged to someone else. Every few feet, someone used a version of my name that proved they read it off. Slack, recently. Marcus, hey man. They didn't ask where I was sitting. They didn't ask how I was doing. They did the wrist lift glance at their watch while pretending to scratch their sleeve. That meant they were late to a conversation that didn't involve me. I ate chicken that tasted like lemon pledge and tried not to think about how last month the CTO had quoted a line from my deck in an all hands without attaching my name to it. I told myself it was a mistake, like the badge, like the seating, like everything you avoid naming, because once you say it, it becomes real. On the far side of the ballroom, near the stage, a velvet rope cordoned off a cluster of high-top tables. A sign said Program Team and Guests. I'd been told I was on the program team up until the reorg. After that, nobody explicitly told me I wasn't. I walked toward the rope because I wanted to see how many steps it would take before someone stopped me. I didn't get to find out. The event planner stepped into my path with a smile that lifted only one side of her face. "Can I help you with anything?" "I'm with Apex," I said. "I was looking for it. That section is for full access tonight," she said, and then she tilted her head like she was apologizing to a dog that had been told to stay. On the stage, Connor tapped a mic. Lights softened, a brand video rolled. Happy stock workers, quick cuts of our app on a phone in a palm that was too perfect to belong to anyone in the office. The montage ended on a still, "We win together." The room clapped like rain. Someone handed Connor a glass of champagne from a tray that never came near Buffet A. There's a specific kind of quiet you feel in a crowd when you go from invisible to erased. It isn't dramatic. It's not a scene. It's just the air getting slightly denser while the floor drifts a half-inch farther away. I felt it when Connor started his speech about this year's transformation. He thanked the leadership team first, of course. He named project leads. My project had a new name now. He said it like a brand. He didn't say mine. I looked for my manager, Paula. She was at the high tops, laughing too big, tossing her hair like a signal flare for proximity to power. She saw me. I know she did, because her smile froze a quarter inch when our eyes met, then recalibrated itself into professional warmth. She lifted her glass in a small salute that read to me as, "Be cool." I stood there a minute longer until the room blurred. Not tears, just humidity on the inside of your skull when you realize the floor plan isn't an accident, and neither is the rope, and neither is the paper badge you're expected to wear like you chose it. I put the plate down on a cocktail table with no coasters and took a step back like I might be leaving the crime scene. The coat check girl found my ticket without looking. Habit, muscle memory, people like me check out early. I threaded the paper badge off the lanyard, slid it into my jacket pocket, and felt how weightless it was. A man in a tux with a navy badge widened his stance so I could pass him in the hallway without touching him. He didn't look at me. He didn't have to. The posture said it all, not his area. Outside, the hotel awning rattled in a wind that hadn't existed 5 minutes earlier. The valet glanced at my pocketed ticket and then at my face and decided I drove something mid-range. He was right. While I waited, a group of developers I'd onboarded last year spilled out behind me, giddy on someone else's open bar. "Dude, the shrimp station," one of them said. He saw me, then glanced at the badge-shaped absence on my chest and quieted. "Hey, Marcus," he said, and then his voice thinned, and he turned back into the warm light. My car arrived. I tipped the valet more than the service demanded because leaving the place well has always mattered to me as much as arriving. In the rear view, the ballroom windows looked like aquarium glass. People moved slow and bright on the other side, mouths open and shut, soundless. I thought about the "we win together" slide and how nobody ever explains that together often means you do the work and we take the photo. The drive home was 31 minutes of streetlights and red brake lights, and the kind of radio songs that don't stick to any part of your brain. At a stoplight, I finally took the badge out of my pocket. The paper was already softened, edges breaking down. I tried to imagine the meeting where someone proposed the label. Maybe it was a drop-down in an event app, a harmless category they told themselves wouldn't be noticed. Maybe it was an email from someone like Paula, short and neat. For seating, Marcus can be assigned limited access. Maybe it wasn't personal to them. It felt surgical to me. I didn't go inside right away when I parked. I sat in the driveway with the engine off, windows cracked, listening to the night insects take attendance. You can tell yourself stories about accidental slights for a long time if you want to keep your life simple. But the last 6 months weren't simple. The reorg, the way my roadmap meetings were moved to times I couldn't make, and then I was dinged for non-participation. The doc I wrote that was copied and pasted into a deck where my section was retitled Team Effort. The new faces in our stand-up who looked past me to see if anyone with a gold lanyard would be joining us. The badge was just a name tag for something that had already happened. Inside, my apartment smelled like the lemon hand soap I buy in bulk when it's on sale. I dropped the badge on the counter and it slid toward the edge and stopped at the grout line like it wanted to make a run for it. I filled a glass with water, drank half of it, and leaned on the sink with both hands, palms damp, watching the city in the dark rectangle of the window over the faucet. Somewhere in that mess of light, people I helped hire were laughing over a bar tab I wasn't allowed to accrue. I should have been angry. Maybe I was. It didn't feel hot. It felt cold. The way metal feels cold when you touch it and realize it's been that way all along. You just hadn't put your hand on it yet. I rinsed the glass and stacked it upside down on the rack. On the counter, the badge curled a little more, the letters flattening into the paper like they were sinking to hide. I didn't break anything. I didn't draft a message to the group chat I'm not on. I didn't compose a righteous email I'd never send. I stood there until the refrigerator hummed and stopped. Then I picked up the badge, slid it into an envelope from a pile of junk mail, and wrote one word on the front with a Sharpie I keep for cables and moving boxes. Proof. I put the envelope in the drawer with takeout menus and warranties and the key to a storage locker I haven't opened since I moved here. I closed the drawer carefully, like I was putting a clock back together after removing a gear. I've always known my value by the problems I make smaller. Tonight, I learned a different measure. Not a speech, not a scene. Just a line, drawn quietly. They called me a guest, and I believed them long enough to show up and stand where they told me to. Now I know where the rope is and where it isn't. And I know what it feels like to be ushered to buffet A, while someone else toasts to transformation with my words in their mouth. I turned off the kitchen light and let the apartment go to the kind of dark that isn't empty, just unoccupied. The city kept breathing through the window. I took off the ironed shirt and hung it on the back of a chair, so the creases wouldn't turn into something permanent. Then I washed my hands and watched the water bead and run off the backs of my fingers, clean and useless. And when I dried them on the towel, I realized my palms had stopped shaking. Somewhere between the driveway and the sink. And what took its place wasn't calm exactly, but it wasn't panic either. It was the part of me that writes things down, the part that timestamps, the part that notices who gets named and who gets nodded at in passing. It was patient. It was already awake. The Monday after the party felt like a hangover without alcohol. The building smelled like old coffee and carpet glue. I swiped my badge at the glass door, the real one, the plastic one that said employee, and for a half second the light blinked yellow before it turned green. It had never done that before. Inside, the hum of the office was different. Not quieter, just edited. The conversation stopped half a second too early when I walked by. The laughter that used to pull me into a group now kept its back turned. I passed the break room and saw my old project team huddled around a monitor, their faces blue in the light. They didn't look up. Someone closed a window with an Alt-Tab reflex that told me whatever it was. I wasn't supposed to see it. I made coffee, the kind that tastes like punishment, and opened my inbox. The first thing I noticed was the meeting I'd created for our upcoming sprint demo. Now hosted by someone else. Connor, the VP. Subject line: Leadership Review, Apex Progress Report. No invite for me. There was another email, one level higher, marked FYI Presentation Draft. I clicked it. It was a PDF deck. 20 slides. My deck. Same color scheme, same flow, same chart styles I'd built by hand, because the design team never had time. Except now the author line read, prepared by Paula Ramirez, Director of Product Operations. Slide 7 stopped me cold. It was my architecture diagram, my name cropped out of the footer. The title replaced with Revised Internal Flow, Post-Reorg. Revised, my ass. That diagram had been my nights and weekends. Every arrow, every note, every late Slack message asking about throughput. I checked the metadata out of habit. The file had been saved 2 days before the party, by Connor. I sat there staring at the timestamp, feeling my pulse in my neck. That's when it really hit me. The paper badge wasn't random. It was the line between visibility and erasure, printed out and laminated. The new order made it official. They were keeping the product, but cutting the man who built it. Around noon, Paula walked by my desk. She always carried herself like the air around her was a different temperature. Cooler, cleaner. "Morning, Marcus," she said, all brightness and teeth. "How are you holding up after Friday?" She said it like I'd survived a funeral. "Good," I lied. "Great party." "Right?" She laughed. "You should have stayed longer. The after-hours crowd got wild." "I wasn't on the list." She blinked like the sentence didn't parse. "Oh, that. Yeah, don't take it personally. The venue had a cap, and Connor wanted to make sure leadership could mingle with vendors." "Vendors?" I asked, because I thought I was on your team. Her smile faltered for half a beat, and then recovered. "You are. Of course you are. But for events like that, it's just optics. You know how it is." "Optics," I repeated, tasting the word like it was spoiled milk. She put a hand on my shoulder. "Don't overthink it, Marcus. Big things coming this quarter. Let's keep momentum, okay?" And then she was gone. Heels clicking down the hallway like punctuation marks. I stared at my screen until the cursor blinked itself into a metronome for the thought I didn't want to finish. They'd already moved on. That afternoon, I opened the shared drive. The folder I used for deployment documentation was gone. Not moved, deleted. Replaced by a new one titled Legacy Resources. Inside, 2 subfolders. One was empty. The other contained a single PDF, my original process doc, with a new cover page. Archived, superseded by Apex 2.0. Modified by Connor, I started saving things, quietly, methodically. Email chains, attachments, commit logs, anything that carried metadata. You learn after a few years in tech that systems don't lie. Only people do. The timestamps were my witnesses. That night, after everyone left, I stayed late. I told myself it was to catch up on backlog items, but the truth was I wanted to see what else they'd taken. The office was a different animal after dark. The hum of the AC was louder than the thoughts in your head. The cleaning crew moved like ghosts, unplugging monitors, wiping fingerprints off glass. I pulled up a server log from 2 weeks ago and saw an entry tagged with Connor's credentials, accessing my branch repository. The commit message, standardization cleanup. He'd overwritten my code with cosmetic edits and pushed it under his account. I leaned back in my chair, eyes burning from the monitor. They'd built the perfect narrative, new leadership, restructured process, improved architecture, and all of it balanced on the quiet assumption that I'd stay silent. At 9:42 p.m., an email notification blinked in the corner of the screen. Subject, reminder, Apex Milestone Review. Wednesday, 10 a.m. The sender, Connor. CC, Paula. BCC, hidden. My cursor hovered over reply. I typed, just to confirm, will I be presenting my section on ingestion flow? Then I deleted it, because if I had to ask, the answer was already no. Instead, I opened a blank note and started typing everything I remembered. Dates, conversations, who said what. I didn't know what I was building yet, but it felt like a map. Each entry was a breadcrumb, each line an anchor to reality. The next morning, I arrived before everyone else. The sun wasn't even touching the windows yet. I made coffee strong enough to taste like purpose and opened the company directory. Buried 3 levels down was a contact for internal audit and compliance. Generic email, I hovered over it for a long time. The day unfolded like a movie I'd already watched. Paula sent a group message about alignment ahead of Wednesday. Connor walked through the office with a smile so heavy it could crush you if you stood too close. People laughed too loud when he passed. The interns carried boxes labeled Apex presentation kits. By noon, I'd decided what kind of story this was going to be. Not revenge, not yet. Just clarity. The kind that comes when you realize you're standing in the middle of a machine that feeds on silence, and you're the only one left who knows how it works. At 2:15, I got up, walked past Paula's glass-walled office, and saw her through the reflection, her screen open on the same deck, the one that used to be mine. She was changing the color palette, adding the company logo on every slide, making it presentable. She didn't see me watching, and that was fine, because now I had something better than access. I had evidence. I went back to my desk, opened a private drive, and started duplicating every relevant file under a folder labeled Archive EM. I didn't rename them. I didn't encrypt them. I just backed them up, timestamps intact. That night, when I shut down my laptop, the reflection in the black screen stared back. Same eyes, just sharper. The badge from the party was still in the drawer at home, but now it felt like part of a larger pattern. They'd called me a limited access guest. What they didn't realize was that guests can also be witnesses, and witnesses, if they're patient, can become very dangerous. Wednesday morning arrived wrapped in the kind of calm that always comes before a storm. The artificial quiet that exists when everyone's too busy pretending everything's fine. The Apex Milestone Review meeting was scheduled for 10 a.m. sharp in the executive conference suite on the 21st floor. I wasn't invited, I knew that. But I came in early anyway. The elevator dinged open on 18, and I stepped into the corridor, lined with the new motivational posters Connor had ordered last month. Own your outcomes. Lead without permission. Irony was a full-time employee here. By 8:15, I'd already been through the network logs, the access credentials I'd found earlier in the week, the ones Connor used to standardize my repository. Still worked. He hadn't bothered to revoke them. So I logged in under his account and opened the shared presentation folder for the milestone review. There it was, Apex Presentation Final V5 PPX. I clicked Properties, last modified 7:42 a.m. by Connor Reed. He was still making changes. I downloaded a copy to my drive, then opened the backup folder I'd built quietly over the last few days. Archive M. Side by side, I compared the decks. Slide 9, identical architecture diagram. My diagram. Same layout, same legend. Slide 12, process breakdown. Every metric the same as my original report. Slide 15, key results. Except now, under project leadership, it read, presented by Connor Reed and Paula Ramirez. My name wasn't there, but my work was everywhere. That's when I realized this wasn't just a reorg. It was a rewrite. They'd been building a new mythology, and I was the ghost story they planned to bury beneath it. By 9:10, I was sitting at my desk, waiting. The plan wasn't revenge yet. It was still precision. I opened my email drafts. The one addressed to internal audit and compliance was ready. All I needed to do was attach the files. My source docs, the original architecture slides with metadata, the commit logs from the repository, and the internal Slack messages showing who gave what orders. I wrote only one sentence in the body. Please see attached materials regarding data misrepresentation and authorship falsification within the Apex reporting structure. Then I didn't send it, not yet, because I wanted to see it. I wanted to see their faces when the story played out live. At 9:45, I grabbed a coffee and took the stairs 2 floors up. The executive suite was cordoned off with a frosted glass door and a touchpad lock. I waited near the corner, pretending to check my phone, as the first wave of full access badges entered. Laughter, perfume, and the clink of branded coffee mugs. I caught a glimpse of Paula's blazer, navy, tailored, expensive. Behind her, Connor, all confidence and polished teeth. 10 minutes later, the door closed. I found a spot at an empty desk down the hall, one of the hybrid workstations nobody used, and opened my laptop. The network feed for the executive room was restricted, but the shared folder auto-synced across all local drives. Every time someone saved changes to the presentation, it created a new shadow copy. So I watched the timestamp refresh in real time. 10:03, 10:04, 10:05, then nothing. The meeting had started. I imagined the lights dimming, Connor at the front of the room, the giant screen showing my slides, my work. I imagined Paula nodding at the right moments, the board taking notes, the applause coming on cue. At 10:28, the sync folder flashed again. A new file, Apex Presentation Final V6 PPT. I opened it. The same deck, but now with a new slide at the end. Next steps, leadership alignment. And at the bottom, a company watermark. They were preparing to send it to the board as the official quarterly update. Perfect. I attached both versions, the one Connor just saved and my original, to the draft email. Then, without thinking twice, I added one more recipient to the CC line. Board Relations, company.com. I hovered over send. My finger didn't tremble. It didn't even hesitate. It just clicked. The message disappeared into the system. And for the first time in weeks, I exhaled. At 11:02, the fire alarm went off. Not the full blaring kind, the soft chime that means, "Everyone stay where you are, we're investigating." I knew better. Within minutes, Slack started lighting up. Did someone leak the Apex report? What's happening upstairs? Compliance just pinged Paula. Connor looks like he's seen a ghost. I minimized the chat window and kept working. No one came to my desk. No one even noticed I wasn't in the meeting. By 12:20, the news had spread. The Apex milestone review had been cut short halfway through the presentation. An internal email from HR arrived just before lunch. Effective immediately, all project documentation related to Apex will be under review. Please refrain from sharing files externally until further notice. I smiled. They were already trying to contain the fire. But the thing about truth is, once it's out, it doesn't go quietly back in the folder. At 4 hours, Paula's assistant walked through the office with red eyes. She didn't make eye contact. Connor's door stayed closed all afternoon. Around 5, security escorted a man in a suit out of the 21st floor, carrying a laptop in a sealed envelope. I went home, didn't check my messages, didn't celebrate. Just sat at my kitchen table, where the envelope labeled proof still lay in the drawer beneath my hand. I opened it and took out the paper badge. The letters had faded a little, but they were still legible. Limited access guest. I ran my thumb across it and laughed, quietly. The kind of laugh that doesn't reach your face. Limited access. That's what they'd given me. But access, I realized, wasn't about permission. It was about knowledge. And now I had all of it. Tomorrow, the calls would start. HR, legal, maybe even someone from the board trying to understand my perspective. They'd phrase it like diplomacy, but it would really be triage. They'd want to know what I knew, how much I had, who I'd told, and I'd tell them the truth. Every word of it. But not yet. Tonight, I'd sit in the dark for a while longer. Because for the first time in years, the silence didn't feel like punishment. It felt like power warming its hands. Friday came dressed like any other day. Fluorescent lights, stale coffee, the faint smell of toner in the hall. But there was something underneath it, the stillness before glass breaks. When I walked in, the receptionist looked up too quickly. The guard at the front desk nodded like he already knew my name before I said it. That was new. Upstairs, the chatter had gone thin. No music in the break room. No laughter bleeding from open doors. A calendar invite appeared on my screen the second I logged in. Subject, meeting with HR, 10:30 a.m. Attendees, Marcus Hale, HR Director, Legal Representative. No sender, just system generated. I poured coffee, burned my tongue, and didn't sit down. At 10:30 sharp, I walked into the glass conference room. Two people were already there, HR Director, Dana, I think, and a man in a gray suit with a tablet he didn't look up from. They asked if I'd like water. I said no. Marcus, Dana began, her voice soft but trained. We wanted to discuss the materials you sent earlier this week. She didn't say complaint, didn't say allegation. Materials. That was the corporate way of saying evidence we wish didn't exist. I nodded. Okay. The man in the suit leaned forward. You understand the seriousness of sending confidential files to multiple recipients outside your management chain. I sent them to the board relations address, I said. That's internal. It's technically external facing, he corrected, smiling like a dentist about to drill. I met his eyes. So is fraud. He blinked. Dana shifted in her seat. Marcus, no one is accusing you of wrongdoing. We just need to understand your intent. My intent, I said, was accuracy. You were about to report falsified data to shareholders. I stopped that. You're welcome. Silence. The man in gray exhaled through his nose, a controlled sigh that said I wasn't supposed to talk back. Dana cleared her throat. We've initiated an internal review. Connor and Paula are currently on administrative leave. There it was. The words I hadn't known I was waiting for. I didn't smile. I just said, good. During the review, she continued, we'd like you to continue your regular duties. There's no immediate change to your position. Translation, stay put. Keep quiet. I stood. I'll keep working, I said. That's what I do. Outside, I passed a cluster of engineers whispering near the vending machines. The second they saw me, the air changed. Respect mixed with fear. They knew something had happened. They just didn't know yet who had pulled the string. By lunch, an internal memo hit every inbox in the company. Effective immediately, leadership transitions are underway in the Apex division. Interim oversight will be provided by the office of the CTO. No names, no explanation, but everyone knew. By 4 p.m., Paula's office was empty, desk cleared, plant gone. The whiteboard wiped clean except for one faint marker line she'd missed, a curved arrow pointing nowhere. Connor's name disappeared from the Slack directory by evening. At 5:12, I got an email from the CTO himself. Subject, need a quick sync next week, just that. No tone, no context. But I knew what it meant. I didn't reply, not yet. Instead, I walked down to the lobby. The air smelled like printer ink and old ambition. Outside, the rain had started. Slow, deliberate drops that hit the glass like a metronome. I stepped into it without an umbrella. The cold felt clean. That weekend, I turned my phone off. I didn't check my email. I slept longer than I had in months. When I finally did open my laptop Sunday night, there was another message waiting. Monday, 9 a.m. Please report to Central Office HQ. Bring your ID. No subject. No sender listed. Just that. Monday morning. Central Office. A building I'd only seen once years ago when I was still the guy fixing other people's bugs. The lobby was marble and glass, the kind of place that made you feel like you should walk quieter. The security guard checked my badge, then looked at the monitor and frowned. He handed me a new one. Gold plastic. Embossed lettering. Access granted. I stared at it for a second too long. The elevator opened onto a floor I'd never seen. The view stretched across the city, towers and river and morning light cutting through the mist. The CTO was waiting at the end of the corridor, no entourage. Just him, leaning against the frame of his office door. "Marcus," he said, shaking my hand, "you've made quite an impression." I didn't answer. He gestured to a seat. "I've read everything, the logs, the timestamps, the emails. You were thorough. You understand the system better than most of my directors." "That's my job," I said. He nodded. "Not anymore." For a second I thought I was being fired. Then he slid a folder across the desk. "Director of Infrastructure Integrity," he said. "New position. Reports directly to me." The title hit harder than I expected. I opened the folder. Offer letter. New salary. Enough zeros to make silence expensive again, but this time on my terms. He smiled. "We need people who see what others miss, who don't confuse access with loyalty." I took a breath. "So this is my reward?" He leaned back. "Call it correction." When I left the office, the city looked different. Brighter, maybe. Or maybe it was just me seeing it without the film of exhaustion and quiet humiliation that had covered everything for months. That evening I stopped at the same hotel bar where the company had held the party. Different crowd now, tourists, businessmen, a bartender who didn't care who I was. I ordered one drink, sat at the same table near the window. From my pocket I took out the paper badge. The edges were frayed. The ink slightly bled from rain that night. I walked out. I placed it on the table beside the new one. Gold, heavy, solid. Paper beside metal. Ghost beside proof. For a long time I just looked at them. Then I raised my glass, quiet and steady. "They called me a guest," I said under my breath, "but this was always my house." I left the paper badge there on the table when I walked out. The bartender picked it up, puzzled, turning it in his hand. He wouldn't understand. He didn't have to. Outside, the rain had stopped, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was waiting to be let in. I was already where I belonged.